All right. Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us here on this beautiful Wednesday. We appreciate it. My name, of course, is Nolan Duda. I'm the Client Experience Manager for Ideal Traits. There's a good chance you've seen me on some webinars over the last couple of months and excited to bring a new one to us, which is how to, of course, succeed on Indeed. So, first things first, if you have joined us before, you are familiar with using the chat or the Q&A. Let us know where you are, where you're at in the country, where you're joining us from, and talk to us about what your biggest hiring challenge is. One of the main reasons why we're, of course, having this webinar today is to talk about how to succeed on the largest job boards in the country. And we want to know what your biggest challenge is and see if we can bring that into our topic of conversation. So we appreciate you for joining us again. As a platinum tier partner of Indeed, we are lucky enough to be able to host a webinar such as this, where we have our partner manager, Luana, who is here to join us. So Luana has been with Indeed for over 6 years now, and I'll turn it over to her to allow her to introduce herself before we get into the agenda and we get things started.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. As Nolan mentioned, I'm Luana Lim. I am a partner manager over at Indeed. Like he said, also, I've been here for 6 years, but I've been on the partnerships team for about 2.5. And prior to that, I spent almost 4 years on Indeed's enterprise client success team. So I used that time really to become an expert on the Indeed employer experience. Today, as a partner manager, I work closely with Indeed's technology partners like Ideal Traits. And really, what I do with them is just make sure that you guys and both employers and job seekers really have the best possible experience on Indeed.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Luana, thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. So, again, with us having the unique opportunity at Ideal Traits to be able to co-host a webinar such as this, we're going to cover a lot of great things, as you can see here on the agenda, but a lot of it's going to be relevant to what Indeed is seeing in the industry and really what that means for you. So, of course, as we proceed throughout, the first thing that we're going to cover is Indeed with Ideal Traits and that partnership. If you've been following along, I think back in April, we sent out some correspondence that, of course, we have become a platinum partner. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means for you all. Luana's going to talk about Indeed. She's also going to talk about insurance industry updates, how to succeed on Indeed, streamlining your workflow, and then, of course, we're going to get to your questions and provide some answers at the end. So that's what we're going to cover in this 6-step webinar over the next 45 minutes to an hour. So again, if you have questions or there's something that you want answered based off of the information that we're going over, please, feel free to send that information in. We're happy to also answer some questions from you all as attendees. So I guess we'll get right into it then. Luana, are you ready?
Yeah, ready.
All right, perfect. So we can go on to the next slide, and we'll get into the relationship, of course, with Indeed and Ideal Traits. So with us, again, having that platinum partnership, which you may have seen in terms of the correspondence that we sent out in April, and of course, you can see it listed within our website now. And a lot of you may be wondering, what that means. And maybe you reached out to get that information, but we, of course, wanted to touch on it, so then you're provided with, the information necessary. But we are very gracious to have such a strong relationship with Indeed, again, as the largest job board in the country. And that allows us the unique opportunity to really have 3 different types of integration. So the first is going to be that Indeed Apply Sync. So this is going to provide for a more seamless, mobile-friendly application process, and it streamlines the screening process as a part of that too as well. And as in conjunction with that, you also might have seen some things in terms of screener questions and EEO capabilities, which then helps you get a more complete picture of what a candidate is going to bring to the table in order to fit as a part of the positions that you have open, right? So that Apply Sync is really going to help you with those screener questions, those EEO capabilities, and really just provide a more streamlined process for the applicants when going to apply to the jobs that you're posting through Ideal Traits when applying through Indeed. Now, the next, of course, is that Disposition Sync, as you can see there, applies for more improved candidate targeting. So really what this boils down to is when Indeed knows the type of candidates that you are looking for and whether or not you are interested in the specific candidate, they then can begin creating a more targeted approach towards what you're looking for, right? So at that point, it's going to allow you to have improved quality in terms of the candidates you are receiving and the type of candidates that are applying to your job ads. Again, when Indeed knows what you're what you like in a candidate, they're able to target towards candidates that have similar, I suppose, requirements or similar backgrounds and things of that nature. So in addition to that, obviously, when you're engaging with the candidates, which allows them to provide that more targeted search and to provide more quality, you also are able to receive things like a responsive employer badge, which I'm sure, Luana, you'll talk more about too as well, which is a good way for candidates to know that you are involved in your process. If you've sat in on any education that really Ideal Traits has provided over the last several months, a lot of that is geared towards you need to be engaging with candidates, right? Whether you're emailing, texting, or calling them, right? But really just focusing on moving them throughout your process. Again, not only is going to allow Indeed to have a better targeted approach to help provide you more quality, but also you're going to receive things like that responsive employer badge, which again, Luana will give more details on. And then, of course, the last one, which you all may be most familiar with, is the sponsored job integration. So we've talked about this. If you joined us on Success Spotlight webinars, we talk about sponsored jobs and what a budget will look like. But being able to offer sponsored jobs directly in Ideal Traits allows you to have that seamless integration to where you don't have to leave Ideal Traits in order to supply a budget to Indeed to have really more control over the amount of applications that you're receiving and really focus on hiring from a position of strength, right? So the sponsored jobs is directly within your Ideal Traits account. If you've posted a job recently, as soon as you post a job and add your pre-qualifying questions, it's then on the next screen where you're able to see the minimum budget of $50 and be able to put a budget together towards amount of applications that you can expect to receive. So a lot of good stuff. But again, if you're looking to focus more on controlling the amount of applications you receive, if you're in an urgent need to hire, that sponsored jobs integration is something that definitely can help you get in front of more candidates faster. So Luana, I'll turn it over to you at that point. I think you're going to tell us a little bit more about Indeed at this point, and then go through some really good educational material and where the industry is at, I guess take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nolan. And just one anecdotal thing I wanted to say. I'm really, really excited about Ideal Traits being a platinum partner. Been working with the team for the past year, over the past year, and just as a gold partner and working towards this, we are able to do these things like provide these insights with thought leadership, with understanding the industry. You guys have an amazing team over at Ideal Traits that is really plugged in with the things that are going on at Indeed and making sure that you guys are getting the best visibility. I can't say enough. I'm not paid to do this or say this, but I just wanted to say that, I mean, you guys are like one of the best partners that I work with personally. So just wanted to
Well,
say,
thank you.
give props.
Yeah.
All right. So the next section, as Nolan mentioned, is going to be a little bit about Indeed. So Indeed's mission simply is put in this one sentence: we help people get jobs. Indeed was founded with job seekers, with a commitment to put job seekers first. And with every decision about our products and our business, we always ask ourselves, what's best for the job seeker? So what that means is that sometimes we make decisions that are inconvenient for employers and ourselves by making sure that it's easy, that we make it faster and easier for someone to get hired. Ultimately, at the end of every successful job search is an employer making a hire. So ultimately, what's best for job seekers ends up being also what's best for employers. And that mission has really served Indeed well. We're the number one job site in the world, as I think even more so on top of what Nolan said, we're the number one job site in the country, but in the world. So more job seekers visit Indeed monthly than any other job site, in part due to the 30 million jobs we have in over 60 countries globally. We have 350 million global unique visitors each month, and over 295 million job seekers have added their resumes to Indeed, which gives employers the opportunity to reach and engage with the talent that they need. Indeed just really is, I mean, if you guys have ever found yourself in the shoes to search for a job, Indeed is really where you go. We take a simple approach to what we do. A job seeker tells us what they're looking for and where, and we will show them the jobs that are most relevant to that job seeker and what they search. Aside from the global numbers, we know that you also care about the job seekers in your market. So Indeed is the number one resource for many job seekers in the US. We have 57.3 million unique visitors every month, and over 5.5 million new jobs are added each month, which is really what keeps the job seekers coming. Additionally, specifically in the US, Indeed has over 129 million searchable resumes to help you connect with the right talent. So now that we know about Indeed and who we are and our mission, uh, we're going to talk a little bit about the insurance industry specifically. So, being the number one job site in the world really affords Indeed the ability to have a clear picture of what the job market looks like. In this next section, we're going to go over, I think, the industry that is most important to you. All right. So this graph shows you what Indeed calls a job count index, and it indicates the health of an industry based on how many available jobs there are at a given time. What this graph shows you is that as of May 31st, 2024, we're seeing a negative 3.4% decline in jobs year over year when looking at May compared to last year. However, while a decline might not sound all that great, the rate of the decline is not as steep as the previous year. So, what that indicates is that the labor market is actually stabilizing within our industry. Additionally, when looking at growth overall, the insurance industry has grown 30% when compared to the pre-pandemic baseline. So, as you guys can see in the graph, pre-pandemic, uh, it is what it was, and then post-pandemic, or like immediately after the pandemic, there was huge growth, and that was just the overall economy. Over the past couple of years, we've seen that decline. So we're seeing the correction from that very fast, rapid growth. And now that we know that the rate of decline is lessening, again, stabilization. When looking at Indeed's hiring insights for insurance agents, this map shows you where some of the jobs, those jobs are concentrated. So the red areas are the places where there's a concentrated amount of jobs. Again, sorry, concentrated. Therefore, there's a lot of competition in those areas. When looking at the map, I took a look at the red areas, and some of the most competitive places to hire right now are Cook County, which is the Chicago area, Los Angeles County, Clark County, which is the Las Vegas area, and Maricopa County, which is the Phoenix metro area. So, despite, again, those are really big metro areas, and despite them being a place where a lot of people live, actually, for the number of jobs that are available, the average number of job seekers per job is less than 70. So, that's something very important to think about when you're advertising, if in those areas. Some other insights we can gather through our hiring insights tool is that, again, sorry, I think I forgot to clarify this. This is specifically for insurance agents. So for insurance agents, the national average salary is about 67,500 annually. But again, that average salary is going to vary depending on location. So some of those more competitive areas that I mentioned, the annual salary for, let's say, for Los Angeles is a little bit over $80,000. In Las Vegas, it's almost 72,000. But interestingly enough, actually Chicago's average salary for an insurance agent is just under 57,000, which is 10K lower than the national average. Additionally, in May, we were able to see that the number of job seekers clicking on insurance agent jobs increased from April by almost 163,000 job seekers nationally. And we're continuing to see that upward trend in June. The number of resumes that matched an insurance agent profile also increased almost 6,000 nationally. So, what does that tell us? That tells us that while you think, from what I've heard from our friends at Ideal Traits, that things kind of slow down in the summer. But I think what you can take away from this is while things may cool down, Indeed is seeing the number of job seekers searching and clicking on insurance agent jobs going up. So maybe it's a good time to consider staying on top of your sourcing and talking to candidates about the opportunities that you have. But what if you're not hiring for an insurance agent? So all of this information is available to you in our hiring insights tool. So if you have an Indeed account, this would be on the left-hand side under analytics, and it would be a section called Hiring Insights. It's a free tool, again, in your Indeed account, and you can look up any job in any location. And as long as we have enough data, we'll show you information on competition, salary, top keywords that led to clicks. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit, and much, much more. Any questions so far on this? Feel free to drop them in the Q&A or in the chat.
Yeah, so there's been one question that's been asked from the audience so far. I don't necessarily know if it's, of course, the competitive market, I think it could be a part of it. But Vic was asking about applicants not showing up for the interview and tips that we could provide towards that. I think that Luan, I'm sure that talks a little bit towards how competitive the market is, to where the insurance industry still being, relatively a candidate-driven market, where in a lot of areas you see that there's more jobs being offered than candidates available, right? So I think it's important to, engage with candidates, make sure that you have a competitive compensation package, competitive benefits package, and really speak towards your opportunity as if it is a career rather than just a job, right? Where they can see long-term success, they enjoy the people that they work with, they see purpose behind their work. But again, we see that it can be incredibly competitive in certain areas, and then, maybe not so much in others, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those candidates aren't also looking at your competition outside of the insurance industry and seeing that it's still, difficult in that sense. So anything to add there in terms of that question?
Yeah, we'll go into a little bit more, but you made a really, really great point with employer branding and just timing, right? Like, if you think about the amount of time it takes, and I've heard this from a lot of employers across multiple industries, if you don't act on a application like within 24, I would even say like 48 is okay. But 24 hours, there is a good percentage, I think, of candidates that may have already moved on to the next opportunity, or you have to think about the candidate. Like, Indeed, what we always say is put yourself in the shoes of the job seeker, right? If you're a job seeker and you're really motivated to look for a new job, you're not just applying to one job, you're applying to multiple. And so the ones that you're going to hear from first are the ones that they might be putting their attention and just focus on. And so I think that timing of reaching out and making sure that you're genuinely engaged with them, I think is important. But we'll also get into some tips on that later.
For sure.
A great question, though.
Yeah, awesome
All right.
question.
So one more thing I want to cover is just how much the insurance industry hiring landscape has evolved. So in 2024, about 28% of jobs in the insurance industry specifically offer flexible workplace options, remote or hybrid. This is up 20% from pre-pandemic levels. So you guys can see from the graph around 2019, early 2020, really the number of remote or hybrid roles was under 10%, and now it's almost 30% of those. So that says a lot. And why does that matter? So it means that job seekers are looking for more flexible work options. I know that Ideal Traits specifically also has data on their side. So Nolan, did you want to share that?
Yeah, and funny enough too, I was going to bring this up. I was speaking at a event in Oklahoma with the Big I Oklahoma back in the early parts of May, and I was talking about remote with similar information, right? How it's becoming more popular. And one of the questions that I asked the audience is how many people have remote employees today? And there was probably 40 to 50 people in the room, and just about all of them raised their hand, right? So at that point, it's with our current employees, we may have evolved to an atmosphere where they're working remotely, at least part-time, if not full-time, right? But then when we're considering hiring someone new, there's that, oh, well, I need to see what they bring to the table first. I need to trust them, right? And then that trust really should go both ways, right? The candidate needs to see trust in the employer as with the opportunity, and then the employer needs to see trust in the candidate or the potential hire in terms of what they're going to bring to the table for the office or for the position. So through Ideal Traits, I suppose, to provide some perspective, if you're posting an in-office position, the average is somewhere between 20 to 25 applications per job ad. Now, if you have a remote job ad listed where it's, of course, broadcast across the whole country, the average is about 110 applications per job ad. So that's what the statistics show us on our end, about 20 to 25 for in-office positions. about 110 on average for remote positions. So the statistics obviously overwhelmingly say that if you post a remote job ad, you can expect to receive more applications. And I don't really think that that's telling the whole story, because it's not only open you up to just more applications, it's a more diverse talent pool. It's more qualified individuals that maybe aren't available in your specific area, right? But of course, with remote, you need to have the systems and a process in place to be able to support your employees, or it's not going to work, right? But Luana, I know you just simply asked about the statistics, and I kind of went off on a tangent, but hopefully that
That's
provides
okay.
some information towards what you were looking for there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So in addition to that flexibility with workspace, job seekers told us last year what motivates them to look for a new job. So when asked that question, 54% of them said higher pay. So making sure your salary is competitive and being transparent about it is important. The other thing you want to make sure it's realistic. Indeed has rules around salary, and if your range is extremely large, it'll raise some red flags and may lead to lower visibility. Additionally, 35% of those polled said better benefits. So I actually, prior to this webinar, while we were preparing the content, I consulted with a team member on Indeed's talent strategy team to discuss this. And she shared that talking about benefits had a direct effect on apply start rates. And just so you know, an apply start is when the job seeker actually clicks on the apply button when they see it on Indeed. So insurance agent specifically, again, those jobs that mentioned these benefits had over 20% start rates. And 20%, that's really good. If you think about it, that means 1 in 5. There's actually at the top of the list was internet reimbursement, and that had a 25% application start rate. So that means 1 in 4 of those job seekers that viewed that job where the job listed that they provided internet reimbursement applied for the job or clicked on the button to apply. Um, Additionally, employee assistance program, paid parental leave, and stock options all had a 21% apply start rate. And then accidental death and disability insurance had a 20% apply start rate. So remember, these benefits likely aren't the sole reason for the application, but if you're not listing the benefits that you offer, it certainly wouldn't hurt, and it may help push the job seeker to convert to a candidate.
Yeah.
And lastly, the 26% said more flexible hours, and I think that just really goes hand in hand and comes back to remote work. It's just more flexibility. So, in order to be competitive in the market, land and retain the best candidates and hires, understanding that you too have to evolve with the landscape is going to be the key to your success. So speaking of, now that we understand what we're facing in the industry, we can go over what you can do to stand out. So to be successful on Indeed, you need to engage with talent continuously and in 3 primary ways. Your content must be relevant. Indeed, after all, is a search engine, and search engine optimization is important. You want to make sure that your jobs contain keywords which will perform well in search. Going back to the Hiring Insights tool, I mentioned that we have it's a top 10 list of, for that role, keywords that led to a job seeker clicking on it, and it'll give you that click-through rate. Your messaging must also be meaningful. So job advertisements and your Indeed company page content must contain meaningful messages that will draw talent to your job opportunities and your employer brand. And finally, your presence on Indeed must be authentic. Job seekers must be able to believe what they see and want to see that you're actively involved in curating your conversation with them on Indeed. And again, employer brand just really comes back to making sure that you're responsive and again, genuine. So what does all of that mean? Let's take a second to dive into job titles a little bit more. So for creating quality titles, both length and content matter. Indeed recommends that you use simple, easy to use, easy to understand titles. Put yourself in the shoes of a job seeker, again, like I said before, and envision what they might be looking for when typing into Indeed search box. You want to avoid internal names for roles and instead opt for ones that would make sense to anyone outside of the company. For example, a software engineer would be better than GSC DUV engineer, um, which is an actual title I found on Indeed, sadly. And obscure and fun titles might be fun, but they're not going to perform well in regards to relevance. So, administrative assistant would be better than like a calendar wrangler, which is we have a Indeed office really that is every single conference room is named one of those like really off, like not normal job titles. So that you would be surprised if it sounds crazy to you.
Yeah.
We also recommend you use no more than 60 characters for your job titles displayed on desktop and only 35 characters for mobile. Given that 75% of all Indeed Apply applications worldwide are submitted on mobile, shorter when possible might be considered better. Specifically for insurance agent role, I'm given a lot today. But specifically, when I pulled up those hiring insights for insurance agent, it was 70%. 70% of all insurance agent jobs nationally are completed on a or done on a mobile application. So just something to think about.
Sounds like at that point,
But
stick to 35, right? I think,
I would say so. Just to be safe.
yeah, I gotcha. And we had a question come in. So, insurance sales rep for Vic, Asa, that's a good title. I think if you spell out the word representative, that may be best. But insurance sales representative seems concise, seems search engine optimized, right? And seems to be hitting all of those boxes. So I'd have to count how many characters it is, but I think it falls into around 35, right?
Yeah, I would say the only other thing to think about is ask yourself, are you open to a rep that may have the sales rep experience, but maybe not so much the insurance yet? And I know there's licensing and things to also consider, but ask yourself that kind of question, because when you do, uh, I don't want to lead you down the wrong path. It's like, yeah, that's great. You're going to pull in all this other stuff. But if you want to get really specific about a qualified candidate, um, that might also play into it. Just something to think about. Additional.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. The next slide I had was looking at an account manager versus a sales rep. So this was an actual A/B test that we performed, and when looking at the performance between the two titles, we found that the sales rep role got 64% more impressions, which means that a job seeker, it actually showed up on a job seeker's search results, and they saw the title for that job, your specific job. 60% received more clicks, which means that they obviously clicked from the title to view the full job description, and 76% more applies. Additionally, it also costs less. It was almost 18% less when comparing the cost per applicant for account manager versus sales rep. Sales rep was actually a little bit cheaper. So some tips for some quality titles. It really, it's just important to remember that job titles play a big role. You want to keep it short and simple and avoid internal lingo. Also, be aware of the practices in job titles that Indeed doesn't allow or require sponsorship. The use of emojis, excessive symbols, or clickbait type titles, keyword stuffing, like all that stuff that is not allowed on Indeed in the US ever. Other things like currency symbols, bonus or salary information, or extremely specific shift information in titles is also going to require sponsorship for traffic on Indeed.
What is title?
Yeah, title expansion is when you are using more than one. Here's an easy way to think about it. One of my accounts used to be Uber. And so Uber used to say like part-time driver, but then they would also say flexible hours, part-time work. driver, so, but it was always the same role. So when you are using the same open rec and then calling it different things at once, but it's literally the same job, that is not allowed on Indeed.
Gotcha. Okay. And you'll see job ads that are posted that have like a title where it's like insurance sales, remote, work from home. Would that fall under the title expansion? You would recommend against that?
So title expansion is more about multiple job postings that
Sure.
go back to one. That would be more so of excessive title, like information within the title, and that may lead to that will probably just from what you said, that's probably going to be a sponsored only ceiling.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And really quick, Nolan, are we sending the slides out after this or no?
We
We're
can.
sending the
Yeah.
recording?
Yeah. I
Okay.
think
Just
the recording will definitely be sent out, but then we can also send out the
okay.
slide if you'd like. Yeah. No problem.
I would say if you guys want to have these, either take a screenshot now, or if you want to have these like tips, then reach out to the Indeal Traits team and we can work on that. All right. So switching gears, let's dive into job descriptions. Again, both length and content are going to matter. Indeed finds that job postings that have between 100 to 325 words get up to 30% more applicants than other job postings. And that really comes down to, think about the amount of time and attention that you actually have from a job seeker. You want to make sure you capitalize on that. So typical reasons why job descriptions are too long, you want to ask yourself, are you using stock content? Was your job description written by someone a long, long time ago, or was the intended audience someone in HR? Uh, what's your job description focusing on? Are you really, really like zoning in on what the responsibilities are and what the requirements that you're looking for are? Or are you talking about the company mission, the company vision and culture? Are you highlighting job perks and benefits, like we said in the previous slide? Also, are you using, again, that a lot of internal language? If you're going to be using acronyms or titles or terms that are only understood by people inside your company, it's not going to make sense for people outside of your company that you're trying to draw in. So here's another good slide to screenshot. But some tips for writing quality descriptions are listed here. It's good to have information about the company, benefits, required experience, roles and responsibilities, but it's really great to have the salary information, exact location, and I'll get into that a little bit later. Information about what it's like to work for your company, what benefits and perks come with the role, what growth opportunities are there, and what to expect during the hiring process. I've seen some job descriptions that will talk about this is what the interview process is going to be like, but beyond that, they'll even say this is what your 30, 60, 90 days are going to look like, and that really puts the right picture in the job seeker's mind and sets the right expectation. So again, put yourself in the job seeker's shoes. Does your job description make them feel excited about the possibility of working with you and for your company? If the answer is no, then I think it's time to reconsider reworking your job description to advertise, like that. I think that's the key word, advertise the job and your company to invoke that excitement. So once you've got your job titles and job descriptions nailed down, the next thing to do is to streamline your workflow. And what do I mean by that? So Indeed, over the past few years, has also been evolving. What we've really started to hone in on and is our ability to match jobs to the right audience, and that being job seekers. So what will also make this ability to target the right audience even better are the things that you as an employer can do. So first is to be transparent and realistic regarding salary. So 67% of job seekers consider salary information to be the most important component of a job description when looking for new opportunities. Internally at Indeed, we've talked about it, and there's a good portion of job seekers that will not even apply to a job unless they know what the salary is. Again, we want to be realistic. Trust and safety may penalize your job if the salary range looks inflated or if it's just really unrealistic. Some tips is to use examples of regular earnings that folks at your company usually make. An example is like using that one time a top performer was able to make a killing in their commission. That's really the outlier. It's not the norm. So, I know that higher pay is a big motivator for job seekers to look for a new job, but it's not the only motivator. And being transparent about salary really sets the right expectation with the candidate and ensures that neither you nor them are wasting your time with an opportunity that doesn't align. The second thing is to provide the exact location down to the street address. So potential candidates want a clear picture of what to expect. Again, expectations. And this includes the precise location. So we have data that shows that sponsored jobs with a precise location have 2 times more impressions. So if you're not putting the exact address or the exact location, there's views that you're missing out on. So some location posting tips that we have are facility or shopping center names aren't accepted, and it can cause jobs to locate incorrectly. So I would Google the location and get the exact spelling that's captured from Google and to use that on the job. A single typo, even a single letter, can cause issues with the right location showing up. If a location is misspelled or it's not the proper location, this has to be updated within Ideal Traits. But once that's been fixed in Ideal Traits, we'll capture it on the next feed run. And lastly, don't forget to update your candidate statuses. So Nolan talked about disposition sync at the beginning of the webinar, but once candidates are in your ATS, the updated status will be sent back to Indeed. And again, we'll fine tune and improve our targeting so that we're showing your job to the right audience, the audience that has been and will likely be successful when applying to your role. So, uh, so here's an example I wrote down. It's think of it, and it's a good example, and that's why I'm going to say it. So think of it like fine tuning your radio to catch the perfect, like clear station. Or if you stream music like Spotify or YouTube music, it's like it's similar to liking and disliking songs on your favorite music platform to get the best Discover Weekly playlist. I read that and I was like, that's a good example.
Yeah. I also too, I wanted to comment briefly on the compensation part again, because I know we've talked about that a couple times. And if like you'll see those, we all know what you're referring to, where it's like 50 to 200,000, right? Where it's just in ridiculous range, right?
Mm,
I think to a point, like, of course, it'll help you get in front of more candidates because it'll help, with the optimization and the candidate targeting, having that more realistic compensation package or the salary. But then in addition to that too, like once you're going through the interview process, you'll see more candidates are like, they appreciate the transparency, right? When you're going
yeah.
through the process with them and you're being upfront and transparent about the compensation, and they know what they're getting themselves into, right? Telling them they can make 200 when in reality they're probably only going to make 70. That candidate either isn't going to accept the offer or they're not going to stay long once they realize the opportunity to make 200 isn't really there, right? So
Yeah.
I think that that's important too. Like not only, again, can it help with the optimization and the targeting, but it can also help you with you just like having more candidates show up to interviews and then also your retention, right? Like long term. So I wanted to point that out because I know we've talked about it a couple times. I think it's important it will benefit you beyond just getting more candidates to apply, right? Which I think is great. So
Yeah, it all goes back to that employer brand. You're being
yeah,
transparent, you're being genuine and realistic. I think
yeah.
it goes a long, long way with job seekers. All right, so better together, right? When we have data that shows that sponsored jobs with salary and with both salary and precise location have 2.5 more impressions per job, 2.3 times more clicks, and 3.3 more apply starts per job. So if you're not putting it, put it in, man. It's not gonna hurt. It helps. Like we have data that shows it. So I can't stress that more. The numbers speak for themselves.
First week, yeah.
Um, One last thing about Disposition Sync. So again, Nolan mentioned that responsive employer badge. So a little bit more about that. When you update the status, candidate status of 50% or more of your Indeed candidates over rolling 30 days. So it's not just like first to the 30th or the 31st. Over 30 days, if you're just consistent and you just make it part of your workflow, that automatically you're updating the status of a candidate, you can unlock what we call the responsive employer badge in Indeed search results. So what this does is it makes sure you have that badge right there that says responsive employer, and that shows in the job card in search results. Candidates can see that, and it again increases your employer brand. It provides a perception that you respond to your candidates and you have a commitment to your hiring practices and the candidate experience. So I think what ultimately says to candidates is that you're not likely to ghost them. And going back to candidate ghosting, right? Those not showing up um, for interviews, it goes both ways. You know, if you're making the effort to make sure that candidates know where they stand, it's uh, more likely that candidates are not going to ghost you.
Yeah. And we did have a question come in on that, Luana,
Mm-hmm.
in regards to the responsive employer badge. So I think you touched on this a little bit when you talked about the ATS and how when you're moving candidates through the process, it not only helps with the targeting, but also helps you guys understand that they're like agents and business owners they're interacting with the candidates as they move them through the process. But that's exactly what the question is. How does the responsive employer badge work when you manage candidates through Ideal Traits? I'd have to imagine that that's how it would work, right?
Yes. So when you are updating, so the responsive employer badge simply is just a additional icon that shows up with your jobs, and that happens through on Indeed through the integration that we have with Ideal Traits. So I think that goes back to, well, how do you know? How do you know that it's 50%? So that goes back to disposition sync. So when you update statuses within Ideal Traits, that is sent anonymously through disposition sync. It's sent to Indeed through disposition sync. So when I say anonymously, what that means is we're not showing we don't see the name of the candidate. We have an apply ID, and we're just with that, you can't identify who that candidate is. So I think there's another question I see here that does the status also update in Indeed? So it's not like the job seeker is going to see what that status is. Obviously, if they're rejected or they're a rejected candidate, it's best practice to reach out to them and say, thank you for applying. You're not the right fit at this time. But if there's concern about like privacy or specific candidates seeing that status, no, that's not how the integration works. Through that apply ID, we're able to understand with if a job seeker was successful or not, and just in general, when we get uh, a status past a new candidate, we take that average, and then if it's higher than 50%, then you get the employer responsive employer badge. Did it? I know it's a little bit all over the place there. Did I answer the question?
I think it makes sense, right? If you're doing stuff like if you're doing actions within Ideal Traits with the candidates, that information gets sent back to Indeed. You earn the responsive employer badge, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So I guess the important thing to do is utilize the applicant tracking system that's within Ideal Traits, right? And then Indeed is obtaining the information and is getting data towards, okay, Tasha, who asked the question, she is working with the candidates and she's doing it efficiently in a good manner. It's a responsive employer, right? So
Yep.
use the applicant tracking system that's provided within Ideal Traits, I think would be the answer to that one. Yeah. Perfect.
And I think we also answered Vic's question. So it's
Yeah.
not okay. Good. Just want to make sure.
Perfect. Yep. I think we're
um,
good.
Cool. So the last tip I have to streamline your workflow is once you've optimized job titles, your job description, and you pulled all those levers with salary, location, and disposition or candidate statuses, it's time, and you still need that application flow. It's time to sponsor your job. So ultimately, as time goes on, your job is going to move down that conveyor belt. Think about all the jobs that Indeed gets on a monthly basis, right? Like, what is it, 5.5 million? Um, so as your job becomes older, it becomes less relevant. So to combat this, sponsoring your job will make sure that it'll allow you to bid for premium placement within Indeed search results, and more job seekers will be able to see it over time. So our data shows that sponsored jobs deliver 60% more applicants on average than non-sponsored jobs. And Ideal Traits has a integration.
We do, yeah. So like we covered at the beginning, it's one of the integrations that's offered as a part of the Platinum relationship. So again, directly through your Ideal Traits account, once you post your job ad, it'll take you to the screen after you add your pre-qualifying questions, and it lets you know that your job's been posted. The immediate next screen is going to be where you're able to add the sponsorship. Now, if you already have jobs posted and you're considering sponsoring them, schedule a call with our team or reach out to us in the chat within your Ideal Traits account, because we'd be more than happy to help you get set up. And the good news is if you haven't had an Indeed account before, I believe, Luana, it's $100 credit for new Indeed accounts, right? So if they've never sponsored to Indeed, have never had an Indeed account, if you create an account new, you get $100 credit towards sponsorship, which again, as Luana just pointed out, sponsored jobs deliver 60% more applicants on average than not sponsored, right? So, I mean, if you haven't ever created an account, you get $100 credit for doing it. Doesn't really make sense not to do it, right? Because then you can try sponsorship, you can set the budget, you can see how it works, you can have more control over the applicants you're receiving. And overall, I think you're going to get more information in terms of how competitive your area is, right? Because they'll give you information on what you
Yep,
need to
hiring insights.
in order to be competitive, right? So you're going to get more information, and you're going to be able to work with an Indeed rep too as well, who understands that you're utilizing Ideal Traits and is going to be able to help you through that process. So there's a lot of great things that are going to come from you sponsoring your job ad through Ideal Traits. Not only is it easy, but then also, of course, Indeed is providing the credit. You'll be able to get that information that will have more informative data for you to be able to understand how competitive your market is. And then again, you'll have a specific representative who's going to help you manage your Indeed account as well as your sponsorship through Ideal Traits. So if you're looking to get 60% more applicants on average and you're in a position to hire, investing more into your recruiting is going to be a good thing. Again, I know I talked about the success spotlights we've done in the past. And again, one of them said, hire from a position of strength and take control over the amount of applications you receive. This is a great way for you to do it. And again, we're happy to make it so easy to be offered as a part of our Platinum relationship with Indeed. And yeah, I would recommend doing it. I mean, I don't see a reason why not to.
Yeah, one quick thing on that. There is a specific route to get that $100 specific, the $100 sponsor job credit. Don't just go on Indeed and create the account, because you won't get it. There's a link. I think it's all over the Ideal Traits UI, but if you, when in doubt, if you don't know where to do that, reach out to Ideal Traits rep and they'll help you
Yeah.
out.
What we'll do too, just to make it easy, so then nobody ends up like going the wrong route, we'll send it out to everybody that's registered to the webinar. We'll send it out after this, so then you have it. So before you go, Luana makes a great point. Before you go register an account, wait for the link. We'll make sure you get to the right one, and then obviously you're able to take advantage of the credit. Or if Kelly has it on hand, she'll be able to send it in the chat here in just a second, so then you all can take advantage of it instead of us emailing it out after. But either way, we'll get it to you. We'll make sure we get on the right path, and then you're able to take advantage of the $100 credit and then begin the process of sponsoring your jobs and all that good stuff. So great point, Luana. Thank you for catching me on that.
Of course. All right.
All right.
So that concludes our presentation. Do we have time for more questions?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions that we didn't get to here from the audience, and then I think we have a couple that sent it in before, so we'll try to get to a couple here. Just depends on the answers. But from Tasha, she's asking if there's a way to target remote job seekers from a certain geographical area, either state or region. So when she's posting that, how does she target a specific area when posting remote?
That's a great question. So in the US, there's a little bit more guardrails around what you'll call remote. So the idea of remote, where you get organic visibility or like free traffic, is that it should be able to be done from any from any location. But if you are looking to hire in a specific state or region, you would list that state or region within the location. And then in the remote type, you would put remote, or you could also put it in the job description. I believe with the job sync integration that we have, or basically when the XML where Ideal Trait sends us a job, there is a specific tag that where you could specify that it's remote. So I'm not sure how it is on the Ideal Traits UI, or if that's part of the job posting workflow, but that's how you would do it without getting penalized for listing remote and then also putting a state or region.
Sense. All right, awesome. Another question we had here from Vic was, I think it actually might be more of a question for me. For sponsored jobs on Indeed, do we always have to send the online assessment from Ideal Traits to all candidates, or do they get them but just not completing it? So, okay, yeah, I think that's more for me. So with the online assessment, if you have the box checked at the bottom of your job ad to send the instant assessment, then the assessment is being sent out to every single candidate that applies, regardless if it's from the job board, social media, your career page, organic, or sponsored. So everyone should be receiving the assessment. If you're receiving a low completion rate on the assessment, we have resources that we can definitely talk through with you that would definitely be able to assist you in boosting the amount of applications that you, or excuse me, the amount of assessments that you've seen complete. But if in any instance you ever got into a position where you didn't want the assessment to send out, you can also do that. So reach out to us and we can help you with really either one, whether it's wanting to see more assessments completed or not wanting the assessment to be sent automatically. We can help you with both. Reach out to us and we'd be happy to go through that with you. So, all right. And then what do you think? One or two more questions? Is that good for you?
Yeah, from
Okay.
the
Yeah.
does that from is there did we answer everything live that was
So we
sent
answered
in the
everything live. So we're good. If anybody has
Okay.
anything. Oh, here's one. Sorry, one just came in. Do you think
Yeah.
quality or quantity is more important when it comes to candidates? We both can probably
That's a
answer that one.
great question. Yeah, no, I would say I think that that's up to you, right? I think for the more entry level, like the more uh lower skill, I don't want to say lower skill, but the roles that you're more open to. I think it really is something that you should ask yourself, right? If you're more open to different backgrounds, maybe they don't have to be in insurance, in the insurance industry. Um, maybe it's then quantity, that the quantity is going to be good for that. But if you're looking for a very highly skilled, you need someone who's super tenured that knows what they're doing. uh, and again, that sounds kind of bad. You want everybody to know what they're doing, but
Yeah.
if you need more specialized, if you have a more specialized role, then I think quality is going to be what you're looking for. And actually, if you don't mind, Nolan, there was a pre-submitted question that I think could be that could lead into that. I was looking
Yeah.
at it yesterday, but like, how do you attract more qualified candidates? So a lot of the things that we talked about in the presentation today should give you an idea of how to make your job more appealing overall. But if you've already done all that and you've sponsored and you're still struggling, um, Indeed has a smart sourcing product, which is basically a souped up version of what used to be our resume product. So it's our resume product plus a more powerful candidate matching engine. So again, with the whole candidate matching technology that Indeed is really, really leaning into. So if you're looking for more qualified applicants, you've done everything you could, you're, being really competitive and you're thinking about your job descriptions and things like that, uh, that's an avenue you might start to think about. Does Ideal Traits have any similar like uh, resume searching capabilities?
No. So the applicants would
Okay.
would come directly from the job boards
Yeah,
actively applying to the job, whether it's on the
got
job,
it, got it.
these types of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I would say. If you're already doing all the right things, then that's when you start to think about, how can I be more proactive? How can I get that passive job seeker, the one that's not really looking for a job, but might still be open to it. I would say resume and smart sourcing is going to be and a solution that Indeed has.
Yeah. And I think it sounds like it's subjective, right? So, I mean, if
Yeah.
you have more niche position and it's like you get one applicant, you hire them, I think at that point your answer is quality, right? But if you're not receiving, any really quality, I think at that point you're just looking for more, because then at that point, the more quantity you have, the better chance you have of finding the quality, right? So I think it just depends, right? But love that answer. And then I suppose this could be our last question. How would you recommend an agent post for two separate positions if they are similar? So an example could be like a licensed insurance sales representative versus a more of a telemarketer based or entry level sales role. I'm sure there's some difference in compensation and difference in their responsibilities and requirements, but in terms of the titles, is that good enough to be a different job ad altogether, or what would you recommend, Luana?
That's well, if they're two different roles, like if one needs to be a licensed and the
Yeah.
other is open, they don't need that, that would be two separate roles. So I
Okay.
would say post them separately. And I think keywords for, oh, gosh, um, I would, I'm not going to. I think ideal traits reps would probably be really good with helping out with job titles. But what I can recommend is that you would be very transparent about the differences in the roles, because the other thing too is that if you're posting the exact same description for two different roles, Indeed is going to think about that as title expansion, that you're calling it two different things, but really it's not, because you're saying that the responsibilities and qualifications are exactly the same. So you want to be transparent there. Like Nolan mentioned, if they have different salary, you want to be very transparent with the different salary. Um, but as far as titles, I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm not that much of an expert.
You're, you're good. When it comes to
Okay.
titles, reach out to your client support team at Ideal Traits. We can help you get creative, but not too creative, it sounds, from what we've heard. Yes. All right. Outstanding. I think that's all the questions that we had live. I know we didn't get to some questions that were asked beforehand, so we'll make sure to get that information and those answers out, because we do want to be, of course, aware of everyone's time. So, Luana, again, thank you so much for joining us. I speak
You.
for myself and everyone here at Ideal Traits. We are incredibly thankful for the relationship that we have with Indeed, as well as with you. So I know you gave us some kudos and some creds at the beginning for being a great team to work with, and we have nothing but great things to say about you and the relationship and everything that you do for us. So again, we're really appreciative of all the information that you shared. I think everyone can certainly take some of this information home and make sure that they begin implementing some changes. And if you need any assistance with this, you have your Ideal Traits support team to lean on to help with job ads, job descriptions, adding sponsorship. And I know Kelly did put the link in the chat for all of you to take a look at the Indeed credit, so then you can make sure to take advantage of that. So Luana, I'll pass it to you, see if you have anything else that you want to leave everyone with, but thank you again for joining us.
Oh, I think you said it pretty well. This was a lot of fun, so I hope that all the information was useful. Again, hiring insights, sponsored jobs, Indeed has your place for understanding the landscape and getting those applicants. So thank you everyone for your time and attention. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I hope everyone has a great rest of your Wednesday. If you need anything from us, again, reach out to us. And I did misspeak at the beginning. I did say Indeed's the largest job board in the country. Luana, largest job board in the world. So again, we're very grateful to have such a strong relationship with Indeed. Again, thank you all for joining. Luana, thank you again. And everyone have a great day.
Thanks everyone. Bye.